Welcome to the discussion of Williams Hebrew Syntax sections 1 to 16. I want you to know that I'm assuming that you've already read the material and worked through the examples on your own. And the purpose of my discussion here will be to clarify and then provide some practical applications of what's being said in the grammatical information. An additional introductory comment I want to make is that the purpose of a discussion of syntax is to talk about the ways in which grammatical elements of the language are used. When we think about a language, languages have morphology, that's the form of words, and we spend a good bit of time learning the forms of the cal-perfect, imperfect, participle, infinitives, and so on, and then all of the rest of the stems in first year. Now the point of syntax is to understand how do these various grammatical features work in the language. And in our discussion today, we'll be looking at how Hebrew uses the grammatical category of number in ways that really don't match the way we use number in English. So you saw, first of all, that Williams has the categories of singular, dual, and plural, and that with regard to singular, it primarily is used for countable items to indicate one of whatever it is that's being talked about. And of course, nouns can be definite, indefinite, or qualitative. So that's a feature of singular nouns to be alert to, though Williams doesn't directly address that. He also addresses the idea of a singular collective, and we have this in English as well, where deer and fish are singular forms grammatically, but they can refer to a plurality of items within that. We call those collective singulars in English. The dual is straightforward. It's used for two or more of things that come in pairs, naturally, like hands, ears, eyes, nostrils, feet, and so on. Or it can be used for two of anything, like 2 days. So yomayim means 2 days, even though days don't necessarily come directly in pairs. The plural is where Hebrew use diversifies and becomes much more complex. So, as you might expect, the plural indicates two or more of something, but it is also used for abstract concepts. And so, right here, I want to back up and clarify that you should think of the Hebrew plural forms, whether it's the im ending in the masculine plural or the ot ending in the feminine plural, as a form which may be used in a variety of ways. I think when I first started learning this about Hebrew, I thought that somehow there was actual plurality involved in all of these uses. No, there is not. Plurality, numerical plurality, is actually just one of the ways in which these forms are used. Here's a good example. You can take a word like zakein and make it plural, not to talk about old people in the plural, but to talk about old age. So it can indicate abstract ideas. What is it about that abstract idea that's being indicated by the plural? Well, sometimes what's being indicated is simply the idea itself, an abstract idea, or perhaps some intensification of the idea. So, and I'll talk about and give you an example of that in just a minute. The plural forms are also used to indicate respect. So we find texts in the Old Testament where the word Adon, which means Lord or Master, occurs in the form Adonim, and yet it references a single person. And this use of the plural ending in addressing a singular entity appears to indicate that respect is being shown. This is also called the plural of majesty sometimes. We'll talk about how that relates to the noun Elohim in just a minute. We also see instances where a singular object is in a different form whenever it's in the plural. So eitz means tree, eitzim means pieces of wood, not necessarily trees. So you need to be alert to the fact that the referent may change from the singular to the plural, and the way to spot that is attention to the context. An additional use of the plural that Williams indicates is what he calls a plural of a natural product in an unnatural condition. Wow, what a long title. Probably much better to think of this as some kind of plural of product or plural of artificiality. Other grammars call it this. I like the word product. So think of wheat. Where does wheat occur naturally? Well, it occurs naturally attached to a stalk in the field. When wheat is harvested and removed from the stalk, then each of those kernels is aggregated, and that aggregate product of all the individual kernels is called chitim. Chitim does not mean many stalks in a field. It always refers to this product. The same thing can be used, for example, the word dam means blood. Damim is blood that's been removed from the body in some way. It's normally in the body. The removal of it outside the body is indicated by the use of the plural. Plural of extension, often called a plural of summation. And to be honest, I'm a little skeptical about this category because it seems as though it's trying to play with the idea of countables brought together in one. But what we do find is that the word face occurs in a plural, panim. And one man's face is a panim. The question is, why is the plural morphological form used? Well, we're guessing, and our best grammatical guess is that because of it's made up of a plurality of parts, and yet those parts are together in a unity, the plural form was used. There are other instances of similar things where a plurality of parts constitutes a whole, and that would be called a plural of extension. Now, it is true that repetition occurs in Hebrew, and repetition, as Williams indicates, may be a distributive. That is, when we say yom yom, we mean day by day or each day. Repetition can also indicate an emphatic idea. So we don't do this in English very often. We wouldn't say anything like gold, gold, like there is here. But gold, gold in Hebrew would be something like it's really gold, or a highlighting of the nature of the item. And we do this in English. We repeat terms when we're talking often to children as a form of endearment. Beni, beni, my son, often in passion or in extreme emotion. So that captures the basic categories that you were exposed to there. Now, I want to talk briefly about the ways in which this can be applied. And one of the most common questions that gets raised is about the word Elohim. Elohim is grammatically plural. It has the im ending. So does that mean that it's somehow a reference to the Trinity? Or what's going on with this word? Well, actually, Elohim is fascinating because that plural form often takes singular verb forms. In fact, the vast majority of the occurrences of Elohim in the Hebrew Bible are accompanied by singular verbs. However, there are instances in which it's accompanied by plural verbs. And sometimes, now that we've learned about the plural of respect, it's at least possible that the plural form indicates a plural of majesty, or a plural of respect. That is, it is referring to the divine being in a way that's respectful. Of course, this is all complicated additionally by the fact that we have other Semitic languages like Ugaritic, where the primary god Baal is referred to as Elim. So, wow. How do we know? Well, number one, pay attention to grammatical indicators. If you have a singular verb form, assume that a singular entity is being talked about. Since Elohim and Elim both are used to refer to Yahweh, who identifies himself as the only God, there's only one, it may simply be an ancient Semitic way of referring to God with a plural of respect. Okay, that's a possibility. When it occurs with grammatical plural verbs, well, then it's possible that we're talking about spiritual beings that inhabit the heavenly realm other than or including Yahweh. So there's a council of the Elohim, and Yahweh stands among the Elohim, and the Elohim judge, plural, which would include angels and perhaps even fallen angelic spirits. There's a couple interesting passages in the Pentateuch, Exodus 22:8 in particular, that suggests that Elohim, by association, comes to stand for human judges. And Jesus quotes Psalm 86 in John, whenever the Jews say to him, we're going to stone you because you're calling yourself a son of God, the Son of God. And Jesus says, well, if those to whom the scripture came were called gods, and scripture cannot be broken, why are you going to stone me if I say I'm the Son of God? Highlighting the fact that the word Elohim was used in the Old Testament in reference to human persons as well. And that connection seems to be one of association. The judge stands in the place of God, rendering judgment, and thus comes to be called Elohim because of his position. Now, what do you do with all this stuff? Well, when you do the exercise, remember that plural endings don't necessarily indicate the concept of plurality. They may indicate other concepts, abstract ideas, respectful ideas, and so on. One of the other uses of the Hebrew plural is to take the word wisdom, chokmah, and make it plural, chokmot. And there the idea is not an abstract because the singular indicates the abstract idea of wisdom, but it seems to be an intensification or an elevation of the idea of wisdom. All of these are ways in which that morphological form are used in the Hebrew Bible, and certainly open the door to additional clarity as we translate from Hebrew to English and check our understanding of the text, in part because English doesn't let us talk about wisdoms as though that is a heightened or elevated idea. And so English just can't accommodate that, and in a singular word form. It could accommodate it in the sense of saying we could have a phrase, something like the highest form of wisdom or an elevated form of wisdom. Okay, I hope that helps you get a feel for what's going on in the relationship between the form and the use, and ways in which this has bearing on theological and interpretive questions. If you have any additional questions, I welcome you to post questions to Piazza, and I'll be happy to answer them there.